I didn't expect her to sit that close. At first, it was just the sound of dripping water and the faint hum of her refrigerator. The kind of silence that makes you hyper-aware of every breath you take. My hands were under the sink, wrench cold against metal when I felt it, that slow awareness of being watched. When I looked up, she was right there on the counter, barefoot, coffee mug balanced on her knee, eyes too calm to be casual. Her name was Lena, 40-something, maybe mid-40s, though she carried it like an afterthought. Hair pulled back, strands escaping near her temples. The kind of face that didn't bother pretending not to have lived. "You sure you know what you're doing down there?" she asked. Her voice had that half-smile built in. Not mocking, not teasing, just something that made you want to answer carefully. "I think so," I said, half laughing. My hand slipped, knocking the wrench against the pipe. She leaned a little closer, the fabric of her skirt brushing against my shoulder. That was the first time I noticed the faint scent of her perfume. Something warm, like cedar and citrus. It didn't belong in a kitchen. It belonged in a memory. She didn't move back. I didn't either. The faucet finally stopped leaking, but I stayed there a little longer, pretending to tighten something invisible. It wasn't about the sink anymore. The quiet between us wasn't awkward, it was deliberate. "You could have called someone from maintenance," I said, wiping my hands with the towel she'd left beside me. She tilted her head. "I did. You showed up. That shouldn't have meant anything, but somehow it did." I stood, and suddenly the space between us wasn't even a step wide. She was still on the counter, so we were eye level. Her coffee had gone cold, but she was still holding it, fingertips resting against the mug like she needed something to do with her hands. She didn't break eye contact. "You're good at this," she said softly. "At fixing sinks? At staying calm." Her gaze dropped for a second, quick, like a slip she hadn't meant. Caught it anyway. Something flickered in her, a half-second of hesitation. The kind people get when they realize they're about to cross a line they drew themselves. She shifted her leg just slightly, knee brushing mine. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it wasn't. My throat tightened. The air felt thicker. "Do you always supervise like this?" I asked, trying to sound lighter than I felt. "Only when it's interesting." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was smaller, private, like she was trying to convince herself that this was harmless. Outside, a car passed by, headlights flashing across the kitchen window. Neither of us looked away. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Sharp, breaking the stillness. She glanced at it, and her face changed just slightly. Whatever was on that screen pulled her somewhere I couldn't follow. She didn't answer, just pressed the button to silence it. Then quieter. "You should probably go before I find something else for you to fix." I didn't move. My hand brushed the towel, then her wrist, just barely. She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in either. The kind of pause that asks its own questions hung there between us. And then a knock at the door. Firm. Unexpected. She inhaled sharply, setting the mug down too fast. "Don't," she whispered, almost to herself. Then louder, steadying. "Can you just wait here a second?" I nodded, though she didn't see me. She slid off the counter, her perfume trailing after her as she crossed the room. The faucet didn't drip anymore, but something else had started. That slow, steady pulse of something neither of us knew how to fix. She came back from the door quieter than before. Whoever it was, they didn't stay long. Her steps were slow, deliberate, like she needed to remember how to walk back into the same room without breaking whatever had just happened here. I was still standing there with the wrench in my hand like an idiot. "Sorry," she said finally, voice softer now. "My ex. He still thinks the spare key gives him permission to knock." She said it without emotion, but her hand trembled when she set the mug in the sink. The sound of porcelain meeting metal felt louder than it should have. I tried to keep my tone even. "That still happens a lot?" "Less now," she said, then added after a beat. "I'm learning how to be alone." Something about the way she said it, flat like a fact she was tired of repeating, made me want to stay. Maybe because I understood it too well. My last relationship ended right before I started the maintenance job. She'd wanted someone with a plan. I'd wanted someone who didn't mind if I didn't have one yet. We both lost. Lena leaned on the counter, eyes on the sink, but her voice had drifted somewhere else. It's strange, she said. How quiet a house gets when nobody's waiting for you to come home. I nodded, though I wasn't sure she was talking to me anymore. Her shoulder brushed mine when she turned to rinse her mug. It was nothing, barely contact, but my pulse reacted like it was something more. She noticed. I know she did because she paused mid-motion, hand under the stream of water, and didn't move for a long second. Then she looked at me. Not the kind of look you give someone younger, or someone you shouldn't be thinking about that way. It was searching, careful, as if she was measuring what she could get away with. You really don't have to stay, she said. I know. So why are you? The question caught me. Maybe she didn't expect me to answer, but I did anyway. Because I don't think you like being alone right now. Her lips parted, like she wanted to deny it, but she didn't. Instead, she reached for a towel to dry her hands and passed it to me. Our fingers met halfway, too brief to count as anything, too long to be nothing. I don't, she said quietly. But it's safer that way. Safer for who? I asked before I could stop myself. She looked at me then, properly looked. The kind of gaze that feels like a secret being handed over. For both of us. The clock ticked somewhere behind us. The hum of the fridge filled the space again, soft but heavy. She took a step closer, not enough to close the distance, just enough to make me aware of how little space there was left to give. Her breath touched my cheek when she spoke. Next time something breaks, she said, her tone barely a whisper, maybe don't fix it right away. I exhaled slowly, caught between sense and whatever this was turning into. She smiled then, a small, unsteady curve of her lips, and let her fingers brush my wrist before walking past me toward the hall. The scent of her lingered, and for the first time I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave. It had been a week since the sink. I told myself I wouldn't go back. She hadn't called, hadn't texted, and I took that as a sign we were both pretending nothing had happened. Then her message came at midnight. The bathroom taps making that noise again. It wasn't. I knew it wasn't. But I went anyway. The hallway light was off when she opened the door. She stood there in an oversized sweater, hair loose this time, eyes a little tired, like she hadn't slept or hadn't wanted to. You didn't have to come tonight, she said. But she was already stepping aside to let me in. The house smelled faintly of candle wax and something sweet, wine. Maybe. The radio was on low, playing a song that should have made the room feel relaxed. But it didn't. It made it tense. I crouched by the tap, pretending to check for leaks that didn't exist. She sat on the edge of the tub, closer than last time. Her knees brushed my shoulder as she shifted. Sorry, she murmured, drawing them back slightly. But not all the way. It's fine, I said, though my hands had started shaking. Silence filled the space, the kind that grows too fast, takes over every thought. Then she spoke again, voice quieter this time. I shouldn't have messaged you. Why did you? She hesitated. The faucet dripped once, though I hadn't turned it on. I don't know. Maybe because I wanted to see if you'd still show up. I looked up at her. She was looking down, elbows on her knees, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. Vulnerable in a way she hadn't allowed before. People would talk, you know, she said after a long pause. If they saw you here this late. I know. And you're... She stopped herself. Too young to understand what that means. Maybe, I said. But I'm old enough to know when something feels real. That made her look at me. Really look. Her hand brushed my cheek, tentative, as if testing the air between us. My pulse jumped. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. Then a knock. Sharp, hurried. We both jerked back. She stood immediately, heart clearly racing beneath the loose fabric. Stay here, she whispered, stepping out into the hall. Through the bathroom door I heard muffled voices. A woman's laugh, a man's tone too casual to be innocent. You forgot your scarf at dinner, Lena. Dinner. So she hadn't been alone before. When the door closed again, she came back slower, eyes avoiding mine. That was just... She started, but I cut her off. You don't have to explain. She leaned against the doorframe, breathing shallowly. I wasn't going to. The air between us thickened again. She took one small step toward me, then another. My back met the counter. Her hand lifted like she might touch my chest. But instead she stopped inches short, her fingers trembling midair. This can't happen, she whispered. I nodded, even as neither of us moved. Her hand finally fell, grazing mine. Light, electric, unintentional only by pretense. She didn't look away this time, and neither did I. It rained that night, the kind that traps you indoors, makes every sound sharper. I hadn't planned on seeing her. I was walking home from a late shift when her porch light flickered on. She opened the door before I even reached the steps. Power's cutting in and out, she said, clutching a sweater around her shoulders. I hate when it storms. Her hair was damp, sticking to her cheek. I didn't ask why she'd been waiting by the door. Inside, candles scattered the living room. Their light caught the curve of her jaw, the edge of a half-finished glass of wine on the table. The air was thick, not from the rain, but from everything we hadn't said yet. I tried to act normal, checked the fuse box, pretended to care about the wiring. But her voice followed me. Do people ever misread your kindness? She asked from behind me. I turned. What do you mean? She gave a small, uneven laugh. You show up. You listen. You look at people like they matter. Some of us forget what that feels like. I swallowed. Maybe I just fix things too much. She stepped closer. Not everything broken needs fixing. Her hand came up, hesitated, then brushed a strand of hair off my forehead. That simple, careless motion lit something in me I didn't know how to hide. You shouldn't, I said quietly. I know, but she didn't move back. The candlelight wavered as thunder rolled. Her hand lingered near my face, and I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin. When she finally spoke again, her voice barely carried. I tried to forget you after that night, she said. But every time I walked into this kitchen, I remembered you under the sink, and how close I Saturday. My chest tightened. You make it sound like it was just the sink. She laughed, too softly. It wasn't. We stood there, both motionless, pretending distance still existed. Her fingers brushed my arm, the edge of a touch that shouldn't have happened, and stayed. I shouldn't feel like this, she whispered. You don't understand what people would say. I have a son your age, a career built on not making stupid choices. And yet, I said, voice lower now, you're still standing here. That broke something. She exhaled sharply, stepped closer until her sweater brushed against my chest. I could feel her trembling, or maybe that was me. You don't make it easy, she said. I don't want to. Lightning flashed, white across the window, and for a heartbeat, everything froze. Her eyes, wide and uncertain. My hand, lifting almost without permission to her cheek. She didn't stop me. She leaned into it, barely, her breath catching when my thumb grazed her jaw. Her lips parted, just enough. Tell me to stop, I whispered. She didn't. She closed the space between us until the air itself felt like it might shatter. And then the power surged back on. The sudden brightness burned through the moment like a cruel joke. We both blinked, stepped back, pretending we hadn't almost crossed the line. But her lips were still trembling, and her voice, when it came, was a whisper that undid all the pretending. I don't think I can stop. The next morning, everything should have gone back to normal. Didn't. I told myself not to check my phone, not to think about her voice when she said, I don't think I can stop. But that sentence had built its own echo in my head. By noon, she called. Just once. No greeting, no preamble. Just, can you come by? Her tone was off, quiet, urgent. When I got there, she wasn't in the kitchen or living room. The house felt different. Blinds half closed, light filtered and uneasy. I found her in the hallway, arms folded, phone pressed against her chest like a secret. Everything okay? I asked. She looked at me, then past me, toward the front door. My ex came by again this morning. I waited, unsure what to say. He asked about you. Her voice was flat, Said one of the neighbors saw someone leaving late last night. My stomach tightened. What did you tell him? That you were fixing the power. She gave a shaky laugh. Which, technically, you were. We both knew it wasn't the whole truth. She moved to the kitchen, setting her phone on the counter too hard. He said he might drop by to talk to you. That's how he is. He pretends to care about the house when really, he just wants to make sure I'm still alone. Do you want me to go? She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned against the counter, arms braced, shoulders tense. I don't even know what I want anymore. Silence filled the space again, the same way it had the first night. Heavy, magnetic. I stepped closer. Lena, she turned sharply. Don't. Not right now. But she didn't move away. I thought I could control this, she said, her voice barely holding. You make me. She stopped herself, bit her lip, looked away. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, I said. Her eyes met mine, wet and fierce. Don't say that. You meant every word last night. I froze. The distance between us shrank again, without either of us moving. Then her phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. I caught a glimpse. We need to talk. I'm coming over. She saw me reading it. The panic hit her instantly. Oh God, she whispered. He's serious. She pressed her palms against her forehead, pacing, the sweater slipping off one shoulder. I wanted to reach out, to calm her, but touching her now would mean something irreversible. Let me handle it, I said, stepping closer. If he shows up, I'll... No, she snapped, then softened. You can't. If he finds you here, it'll look like... She didn't finish. Our eyes locked, the truth unspoken but burning in both of us. This isn't safe anymore, she said. Then why did you call me? Her voice trembled. Because I couldn't stand not seeing you. That broke whatever restraint was left. I moved forward, her hand meeting mine midair. Desperate, trembling, unsure which one of us had reached first. Her breath brushed my throat when she whispered, You should leave. I didn't. We stood there, inches apart, the sound of rain starting again outside. Then, a car door slammed in the driveway. She went pale. He's here. I looked toward the front window, then back at her. Then we decide right now, I said quietly. Do I stay or go? Her answer came in a whisper that was more plea than command. Don't go. The rain had turned into a downpour. Hard, relentless, like it wanted to drown the house in noise. He was already at the door. We could hear him. The scrape of his shoes on the porch, the quick, angry knock. Lena stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen, hair loose, one hand clutching the counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes met mine, wide, desperate. Go out the back, she whispered, but I didn't move. If I leave now, he'll know. Her breath came shallow, trembling. If you stay, I don't know what happens next. The knock came again, louder. Her ex's voice, muffled but sharp. Lena, I know you're in there. We didn't speak. The air between us pulsed with everything we couldn't say out loud. Another knock. Then silence. Her hand found mine instinctively, fingers cold, grip unsteady. She looked toward the front door, then back at me. He'll wait, she said quietly. He always does. And that's when it broke. Whatever line we'd been balancing on for weeks. Her voice softened. You should hate me for this. I don't, I said. You should. But I didn't move. Couldn't. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth of her through the thin fabric of her sweater. The rain outside blurred the windows, turned the world into motionless gray. She lifted her face, slow, uncertain, and her eyes met mine. All the restraint, all the pretending, all the fear was still there. But something else too. Surrender. My hand rose to her cheek. Her skin was cool, damp from tears she hadn't realized she'd been holding back. I brushed a strand of hair away, fingers trembling, and she leaned into the touch, the smallest, quietest permission. Her breath caught. This is wrong, she said. Then tell me to stop. She didn't. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, The world felt still, just the sound of rain and her heartbeat beneath my hand. She took one half-step forward. The space between us vanished. For a second, I thought she'd pull away. Instead, she pressed her forehead to mine. Not a kiss. Not yet. Just closeness that said everything words couldn't. "I've spent years trying to be careful," she whispered. "And now I can't remember why." "You don't have to explain," I said. She smiled. A small, trembling thing. "No. But I think I finally understand." Her hand moved to my chest, flat over my heart. She could feel it racing. "That's what scares me," she said. "That it feels real." "It is." She exhaled shakily, and then, for a moment that felt outside of time, she leaned in. The kiss didn't need to happen for it to exist. It was already there, in the space between breath and heartbeat. The door rattled again, a reminder of the world waiting on the other side. We both froze. Then she whispered, barely audible, "Go, please." I wanted to argue. Instead, I nodded. As I stepped toward the back door, she reached out, her fingertips brushing mine, soft, final. And in that small touch, I knew we understood each other now, completely, not because we'd crossed the line, but because we'd both chosen to stop right at the edge of it. A week passed before I saw her again. No late-night messages, no calls, just rain, the echo of her voice in my head, and the sound of that front door closing between us. Then, one afternoon, she showed up at the workshop. I was tightening a valve on an old heater when her shadow fell across the floor. "Hey," she said softly. Her hair was pulled back again, neat this time, but her eyes, they were tired, or maybe just honest. "I thought you weren't supposed to find me here," I said, wiping my hands on a rag. "I wasn't supposed to do a lot of things," she replied, half smiling. "But I needed to see you." There wasn't much to say after that. She walked closer, slow, cautious. The smell of her perfume, faint, familiar, stirred everything I'd been trying to forget. "You disappeared," I said. "I had to think," she admitted, "about what we're doing, about what it means." And she hesitated, fingers brushing the edge of the workbench. And I realized I was waiting for someone to tell me it was okay to feel something again. She looked up at me then, eyes steady. "You didn't just fix my sink. You walked into my quiet, and suddenly it wasn't unbearable anymore." I didn't answer. I just stepped closer, close enough to see the pulse at her neck, the faint tremor in her hands. "It's still complicated," I said quietly. "I know. People will talk. They always do." We both laughed. Low, tired, but real. The tension between us wasn't sharp anymore. It had softened into something lived in, something that didn't need to prove itself. She reached up, fingers brushing a smear of grease from my cheek. The touch lingered. "I don't want to keep pretending," she said. "Not that this didn't happen. Not that it doesn't matter." I covered her hand with mine. "Then don't." The workshop light flickered above us, humming gently. Dust hung in the air, gold in the sunbeam cutting through the window. She stepped closer, her other hand finding my shoulder. The contact wasn't electric this time, it was grounding. I could feel her breathing against me, slow and certain. She tilted her head, and I pressed my forehead against hers. Not a kiss. Not yet. Just stillness. "I'm not asking for promises," she whispered. "Just something real. Even if it's small." I smiled because that finally was something I could give her. We stood there, holding on, her palms warm against my chest, my hands resting at her waist. Two people who'd already made every mistake except the one that mattered. Letting go too soon. Outside, the rain started again, soft this time, washing the world clean. We didn't move. We didn't need to. And when she finally spoke again, it wasn't a question. It was an answer. "Stay a while." I nodded. "Yeah, I think I will." The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was peace, fragile, imperfect, but ours. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?